The Galactic Council chamber was the kind of place designed to make you feel small. Vaulted ceilings that disappeared into artificial stars, floating platforms for each of the 47 member species, and enough holographic displays to give anyone a headache. Today's session had been marked as Priority Level Omega, which meant someone somewhere was about to have a very bad day. Ambassador Krell stood at the central podium, all 7 feet of scaled bureaucratic authority. His species, the Vorthians, had been running the council for the past 3 centuries, mostly because they were too stubborn to let anyone else do it. He cleared his throat, which sounded like gravel in a garbage disposal. Esteemed members, Krell began, his translator implant working overtime. We gather today to address the final phase of humanity's membership application. A collective groan echoed through the chamber. The humans had been petitioning for membership for 2 years now, and frankly, everyone was tired of hearing about them. They were loud, they asked too many questions, and they had the disturbing habit of finding loopholes in regulations that had stood unchallenged for millennia. The final test, Krell continued, gesturing dramatically as a containment field materialized at the center of the room. Inside sat 3 pieces of fruit, each about the size of a grapefruit, with a skin that shimmered between purple and black. Warning symbols in 47 languages rotated around the field. The Zytheron fruit. Native to the death world of Calyx 9, contact with its skin causes immediate neural shutdown in 99.8% of known biology. Council member Trix, a blob of sentient gas held together by wishful thinking and a containment suit, rippled nervously. Remind me again why we use this as a test. Tradition, Krell said flatly. Every applicant species must demonstrate their understanding of mortal danger. They must approach the fruit, acknowledge its lethality, and show the wisdom to leave it untouched. It is symbolic. Has anyone ever passed? Asked Counselor Venn, whose species resembled oversized mantises with anxiety disorders. No, but that is not the point. The point is demonstrating respect for the dangers of the cosmos. Krell's tail twitched with satisfaction. The human representative should arrive any moment. As if on cue, the chamber doors hissed open. Jake Harrison walked in, and immediately everyone understood why Earth's application had taken 2 years. He was wearing what could generously be called business casual, khaki pants and a button-up shirt with the sleeves rolled up. He was eating a sandwich. Not even a fancy sandwich, just turkey and cheese on wheat bread. Sorry I'm late, Jake said through a mouthful of food. Your transit system is confusing. Do you guys organize pods by color or by destination? Because the signage is really unclear. Krell's eye twitched. Representative Harrison, welcome. Please, approach the center. Jake ambled forward, still chewing, apparently unconcerned that he was standing in a room with beings who could vaporize his entire planet with a committee vote. He looked around at the hovering platforms with mild interest. Nice setup. Must be hell for fire code, though. Krell powered through. Representative Harrison, before you stands the Zytheron fruit. Its very touch means certain death. We present it to you now as the final test of Earth's worthiness to join our alliance. Jake looked at the fruit, then at Krell, then back at the fruit. Okay, he said. Is there like a bathroom I could use first? That transit pod had recycled air that smelled like sadness and antiseptic. 47 species collectively wondered if humanity had sent them their village idiot. Krell's scales rippled in what his species called a contained rage response. To everyone else, it looked like he was having a mild seizure. Representative Harrison, perhaps you do not understand the gravity of this situation. I understand gravity fine, Jake said, finishing his sandwich and looking around for a trash receptacle. Took physics in high school. Got a B-. The fruit, Krell said, his voice dropping to what he probably thought was an ominous register. The Zytheron fruit is not merely dangerous. It is a concentrated ball of death. Its skin contains neurotoxins so potent that a single touch will cause your nervous system to shut down in seconds. You will experience excruciating pain as your synapses fire randomly. Your muscles will seize. Your lungs will forget how to breathe. You will die badly, Representative Harrison. Very, very badly. Jake nodded along like Krell was explaining marginal tax rates. The Vexlor species sent their champion warrior, Krell continued, warming to his subject. He took one look at the fruit and wept. The Crystalline Collective sent their eldest sage. She wrote a poem about mortality and respectfully declined. The hive mind of Sector 7 actually fractured into subminds from the psychological trauma of merely being in proximity to the fruit. Wild, Jake said, having found a nearby hovering waste disposal unit and successfully throwing his sandwich wrapper into it. Kobe. Counselor Trix rippled in confusion. What is a Kobe? Basketball player. Dead now, actually. Tragic. Jake turned his attention to the containment field. So, this is the fruit thing? Yes, Krell said slowly, wondering if perhaps the translator was malfunctioning. The Zytheron fruit. Certain death. We have explained this. Right. Jake walked closer to the field, hands in his pockets. The warning hologram spun faster, as if offended by his casual approach. Question though, is it ripe? Because I have had it with buying fruit that looks good, but then you get it home and it is mealy and disappointing. If I am going to be acknowledging cosmic danger or whatever, I would at least like to know we are working with quality produce here. The chamber fell silent. It was the kind of silence that happens when an entire room of advanced beings simultaneously questions whether they heard correctly. Counselor Ven's antennae twitched. Did he just ask about ripeness? I think he did. Trix bubbled nervously. Krell gripped the podium hard enough to leave claw marks. Representative Harrison, the ripeness is not the concern. The lethality is the concern. The death part. The dying. Sure. But if we are doing a whole thing here, might as well do it right. Jake leaned closer to the containment field, squinting at the fruit like he was shopping at a farmer's market. These look a little firm. You got any that have been sitting out for a day or two? Fruit like this usually needs to soften up a bit. There is no eating the fruit, Krell practically shouted. There is no ripening process. There is only acknowledging that you understand this fruit can kill you and wisely choosing not to touch it. But hypothetically, Jake said, if someone were to eat it, and that is a big if, you would want it ripe, right? Nobody likes biting into something hard and flavorless. That is just basic culinary sense. Ambassador Krell looked around the chamber desperately, as if hoping someone else would take over. No one volunteered. They were all too busy watching this bizarre human completely miss the point of a tradition that had stood for 800 years. Let me try again, Krell said, his voice strained. The fruit kills you. Dead. Gone. No more Jake Harrison. Your species would have to send another representative, and frankly, based on this interaction, I am not sure Earth has anyone better. So please, for the love of the cosmic abyss, just look at the fruit. Say you understand it is dangerous, and we can all move on with our lives. Jake scratched his chin thoughtfully. Okay. I get it. Super dangerous. Very deadly. Respect the danger. He paused. Can I touch it, though? Every alarm in the chamber went off at once. No! At least 15 counselors shouted simultaneously, creating a cacophony that the translation implants struggled to process. But Jake Harrison, in a move that would later be described in Galactic Council records as either breathtaking stupidity or terrifying confidence, had already reached through the containment field. The field flickered, clearly designed to keep things in rather than keep idiots out. His hand closed around one of the Zytheron fruits. Krell's scream was the kind of sound usually reserved for species watching their homeworld explode. Containment breach. Medical teams on standby. Someone get the ceremonial death rites prepared. Jake lifted the fruit, turning it over in his hand. Decent weight. Good firmness. He squeezed it gently. Yeah, definitely not ripe yet. Shame. Counselor Ven had fainted, which was impressive considering her species did not have a traditional circulatory system. Trix had compressed himself into a corner of his containment suit and was making sounds like a broken air conditioner. Representative Harrison, Krell wheezed, all 4 of his lungs working overtime as he hyperventilated. You are touching it. Why are you not dead? Why are you not screaming? Why are you giving it a produce review? Oh, I am just checking quality, Jake said absently. Then, before anyone could process what was happening, he reached in and grabbed a second fruit. You know what? Let me compare. The chamber descended into pure chaos. Council members were diving behind their podiums. Someone activated the emergency evacuation protocols. 3 different species were praying to their respective deities. One counselor had simply powered down entirely, their consciousness unable to handle the stress. And Jake Harrison, humanity's ambassador to the stars, started juggling. Oh man, I have not done this since college, Jake said cheerfully, as 3 pieces of the galaxy's most lethal fruit arced through the air in a smooth pattern. Used to juggle at parties? Really helped with the whole hand-eye coordination thing. Krell had gone completely rigid, which was his species' equivalent of a mental shutdown. His eyes tracked the spinning fruits with the expression of someone watching their entire worldview collapse in real time. The thing about juggling, Jake continued, apparently oblivious to the pandemonium around him, is that people think it is about the catching, but it is really about the throwing. You throw right, and the catch takes care of itself. Kind of like life, you know? Stop philosophizing and put down the death fruit. Trix managed to burble from his corner. These are actually pretty good for juggling. Nice weight distribution. Jake executed a flourish, tossing one fruit behind his back and catching it smoothly. On Earth, we have these things called pineapples. Now those are tough to juggle. Spiky, weird shape, totally unbalanced. These are way easier. Counselor Venn, having regained consciousness, immediately wished she had not. Did he just compare the Zytheron fruit to pineapples? I think he did, whispered another counselor, a being made entirely of crystalline structures that were currently vibrating with existential dread. Jake caught all three fruits in sequence and held them against his chest like they were bowling balls. You guys also have these things on Earth called coconuts. Super hard shell, and if you do not open them right, boom, you can crack your skull. And do not even get me started on durian. Have you ever smelled durian? It is banned on public transportation in some countries. We have weaponized fruit, basically. We have weaponized fruit, Krell repeated numbly. You have weaponized fruit. Oh yeah, and that is not even mentioning the plants. Poison ivy? Looks like a regular plant. Touch it, boom, itchy rash for weeks. Poison oak? Same deal. We have this thing called a stinging nettle that is covered in tiny needles full of irritants. Australia has a tree called the gimpy gimpy that causes pain so bad people have killed themselves to make it stop. Jake hefted one of the fruits thoughtfully. Honestly, compared to some of the stuff we deal with on a Tuesday, these seem pretty manageable. The medical team, which had been suiting up in full hazmat gear, slowly lowered their equipment. Representative Harrison, Krell said, his voice barely a whisper. How are you not dead? Jake looked down at the fruits in his arms like he had forgotten they were supposed to be dangerous. Oh, these? I mean, they tingle a little bit, but it is kind of pleasant, like when your foot falls asleep, but in a good way. He paused. Actually, do you guys want to see if I can do 4? I think with some practice I could get up to 5. Please do not, said every counselor in unison. Yeah, you are probably right. Do not want to get cocky. Jake set 2 of the fruits back in the containment field and kept one, tossing it casually from hand to hand. So, what is next? Is there like a questionnaire or something? Because I did not study, and I am going to be real honest about that up front. Krell had finally regained enough composure to form complete sentences, though his scales were still doing that twitchy thing that indicated severe psychological distress. Representative Harrison, put down the fruit, slowly. And then explain to this council how you are still breathing. Oh, right. Jake set the fruit down on the podium next to Krell, who immediately leaped backward like it was a live grenade. So, here is the thing about humans. We are kind of durable, not like super durable. We are pretty much the standard model for bipedal species. But Earth is, and I cannot stress this enough, aggressively trying to kill us at all times. Counselor Venn had produced what appeared to be a notepad, and was frantically taking notes. Explain. Okay, so, toxins. Jake started counting on his fingers. We have this thing called chocolate. It is made from plants. Delicious. We eat it all the time. Would kill most of your species instantly because of something called theobromine. Dogs cannot eat it either, and they evolved with us. Then there is caffeine. We are so addicted to caffeine that we have built entire cultural institutions around it. Cafes, coffee shops, energy drinks. Some of us cannot function without it. Also toxic to most animals. This is insane, Trix bubbled. Wait, it gets better. We have these peppers, right? Capsaicin. It is literally a chemical defense mechanism that plants evolved to stop mammals from eating them. Our response? We bred them to be more painful. We have competitions to see who can eat the spiciest ones. We put hot sauce on everything. Some of our military forces use pepper spray as a weapon, and then some of us just eat peppers that are stronger than pepper spray for fun. The crystalline counselor was taking notes so frantically that small pieces were flaking off. Why would you do this? Taste, mostly. Also bragging rights. Jake shrugged. Then there is alcohol. Ethanol. It is literally poison. We know it is poison. We have known for thousands of years. We drink it anyway. We have parties centered around drinking it. We give it as gifts. Some of our religions use it in ceremonies. When we accomplish something important, we celebrate by consuming poison. Krell sat down heavily. Your species celebrates with poison. Well, when you say it like that, it sounds bad. Jake thought for a moment. Oh, and we have this fish called fugu. You have to prepare it exactly right or it kills you with tetrodotoxin. It is considered a delicacy. People pay extra to eat the thing that might kill them. The thrill is part of the appeal. I need to sit down, said Counselor Venn, who was already sitting. And that is just the food, Jake continued, warming to his subject. We have not even talked about our planet. We have hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, volcanoes, tsunamis, floods, droughts, wildfires, blizzards. We have entire regions of the planet that are actively hostile to life. Deserts where you will die from heat, tundras where you will die from cold, jungles with diseases that will liquefy your organs. And where do we live? Everywhere. We looked at Death Valley and said, you know what this needs? A highway and some hotels. The council sat in stunned silence. Australia, Jake said, and several counselors flinched at the word. Oh man, Australia. That place has spiders that can kill you, snakes that can kill you, jellyfish that can kill you, octopi that can kill you, snails that can kill you, fish that can kill you, and plants that can kill you. There is a bird called a cassowary that is basically a living dinosaur with knife feet, and people live there. Millions of people. They have barbecues. Krell's voice was hollow. So when you encountered our test of deadly fruit, I figured it was like, mildly irritating at worst. Jake scratched his head. I mean, you said it was dangerous, but everything is dangerous if you are not careful. We have warning labels on coffee cups that say hot liquid is hot because someone sued when they spilled it on themselves. Our legal system assumes we are all idiots, and honestly, fair. The test, Trix said quietly, was supposed to demonstrate respect for cosmic danger, an understanding of mortality. Jake looked genuinely apologetic for the first time. Oh, yeah, I can see how I maybe missed the point there. In my defense, the briefing packet was like 400 pages, and I skimmed it on the shuttle over. There was a lot of stuff about parliamentary procedure. He brightened. Hey, do you guys want me to make something with the fruit? I am pretty good in the kitchen. Could probably whip up a nice salsa or chutney situation. Absolutely not, said every counselor simultaneously. Krell made a gesture that presumably meant something like, we need an emergency recess before I have a complete nervous breakdown. And the council chamber lights dimmed to indicate deliberation mode. The counselors huddled on their various platforms, engaged in what appeared to be very heated discussions. Jake could hear snippets through the translation field. Clearly defective biology. Or no concept of self-preservation. Explain the coffee thing again. I am still confused. Do they just eat poison for entertainment? After what felt like an hour but was probably closer to 15 minutes, the lights came back up. Krell approached the podium with the expression of someone who had just received very confusing news from their doctor. Representative Harrison, he began, and his voice had taken on a strange quality, almost philosophical. The council has deliberated. We have reviewed the purpose of the Zytheron fruit test, and we have come to a realization that is, quite frankly, embarrassing for all of us. Jake perked up. Oh, is this the part where you tell me I passed? It is more complicated than that. Krell gestured to the containment field. The test was never about the fruit itself. It was about demonstrating courage in the face of overwhelming danger. Every species that has come before you saw the fruit, understood the threat it represented, and showed wisdom by refusing to touch it. They proved they could assess danger and respond appropriately. They demonstrated the kind of careful, measured thinking that keeps civilizations alive. Okay, Jake said slowly. But I touched it. You juggled it, Counselor Venn corrected, her voice strained. You juggled 3 of them while making jokes about pineapples. Right, but I did not die. So technically I showed that humans can handle danger? Jake offered hopefully. Krell's tail did a complicated twitch. Here is our problem, Representative Harrison. Every other species showed courage by respecting the foes. Danger. You showed something, but we are not sure if it is courage or just a complete failure to recognize danger in the first place. The question we are debating is whether your species is brave or just catastrophically oblivious. Why not both? Jake suggested. That is what we are afraid of. Trix bubbled darkly. The crystalline counselor spoke up, her voice like wind chimes in a hurricane. We have spent the last 800 years testing species with a fruit that is, apparently, less dangerous than your average earth plant. We thought we were presenting an impossible challenge. You thought we were presenting produce. Kind of a nice-looking produce, honestly, Jake added. Good color, interesting texture. Could use some ripening, but we covered that. Krell continued as if Jake had not spoken. The real test, we have decided, was never about the fruit. It was about how a species confronts the unknown. Fear, caution, wisdom. These are the qualities we were looking for. You demonstrated none of those things. That seems harsh. Instead, You demonstrated something we have never encountered before. You demonstrated the kind of absolute, reckless confidence that comes from surviving on a planet that has been trying to kill you since you first evolved. You walked into a room full of advanced species, were told you were facing certain death, and your response was to ask about ripeness and start juggling. Jake thought about this. When you put it that way, it does sound kinda bad. Bad or brilliant, Krell said. That is what we cannot decide. Is humanity's complete lack of appropriate fear response a liability or an asset? Do we want a species in our alliance that looks at danger and thinks, that is not so bad, we have worse at home? The council erupted into debate again, this time not bothering to lower their voices. Arguments flew back and forth in 47 languages. Some counselors thought humanity was exactly the kind of wild card the galaxy needed. Others thought they were a disaster waiting to happen. One particularly vocal faction kept bringing up the Australia thing with mounting horror. Jake stood there, hands in his pockets, waiting. He had spotted a vending machine equivalent in the corner and was seriously considering whether he had time to grab a snack. Finally, Krell raised his hand for silence. We will put it to a vote. All in favor of granting humanity membership in the Galactic Council, despite or perhaps because of their alarming relationship with danger, indicate now. The chamber filled with various sounds of assent and dissent. It was close. Very close. The vote, Krell announced, sounding exhausted, passes by a single vote. Humanity is granted provisional membership in the Galactic Council. Provisional meaning, we reserve the right to revisit this decision if you people do anything too insane. The chamber erupted into a mixture of applause, resigned sighs, and what could only be described as interstellar groaning. Krell looked like he had aged several decades in the span of an hour. His scales had lost some of their luster, and one of his eyes had developed a twitch that would probably become permanent. Congratulations, Representative Harrison, Krell said, managing to make congratulations sound like a threat. Earth is now a provisional member of the Galactic Council. You will receive full documentation of your rights, responsibilities, and the approximately 7,000 regulations you are now required to follow. There will be orientation sessions. Many orientation sessions, Jake nodded, seemingly processing this momentous occasion for humanity. The moment that would be taught in history classes for generations. The moment that marked Earth's entry into the galactic community. The achievement that countless diplomats had worked toward for years. Cool, he said. Hey, quick question. Do you guys validate parking? Because the shuttle dock charged me 30 credits, and that seems kind of steep for government facilities. Is there like a form I can fill out for reimbursement? Krell's eye twitch intensified. Yes, there is a form. Section 712, subsection D, Planetary Representative Transportation Expenses. You will need to fill it out in triplicate. Triplicate? Man, you guys really are a bureaucracy. Jake pulled out his phone, which caused several counselors to flinch. They had learned not to assume anything humans carried was harmless. Let me just set a reminder for that. Parking validation, subsection D, triplicate. Got it. Counselor Venn leaned toward Trix and whispered, Are we sure about this? We can still reverse the vote. I will change mine. We can say there was a clerical error. Too late. Trix bubbled miserably. The vote is recorded. We are stuck with them now. Krell was still going through what sounded like a prepared speech. As a provisional member, Earth will have access to galactic trade routes, protected status under council law, and representation in all standard votes. However, and I cannot stress this enough, the provisional status means we will be watching you very carefully. Any violations of council law, any incidents involving restricted technology, any situations that endanger other member species, and your membership will be revoked faster than you can say judicial review. Judicial review, Jake said immediately. I was not giving you a challenge, Krell said tiredly. I know. I just wanted to see if I could say it that fast. Turns out I can. Jake glanced at his phone again. Also, not to be rude, but is there like a wrap-up time for this? Because I have dinner plans at 7 and I need to account for transit time. Your pod system is still confusing, and I do not want to end up in the industrial sector again. That place smelled like burnt metal and regret. The crystalline counselor made a sound like shattering glass. We just granted your species membership in a coalition that spans 47 worlds, represents billions of sentient beings, and has maintained peace in this sector for 3 centuries. You have dinner plans? Yeah, there is this noodle place in the diplomatic quarter that got great reviews. Have you been? It is called Zenthar's Noodle Haven. Apparently, they do this thing with fermented vegetables that is supposed to be amazing. Earth has fermented vegetables too. Kimchi, sauerkraut, Pickles. We basically let food rot in a controlled way and then eat it. It is great. Of course you do, Krell muttered. Of course humans eat controlled rot. You should try it sometime. Really opens up the flavor profile. Jake started backing toward the exit. So, if we are done here, I am going to head out. Unless there is like a reception or something? Cocktail hour? Meet and greet? There is no reception, Krell said flatly. Council sessions do not have cocktail hours. You guys should really consider it. Would make these meetings way more pleasant. Little cheese plates, some drinks, people mingling. We do it on Earth all the time for important events. Jake was almost at the door now. Anyway, thanks for the membership. Earth appreciates it. We promise not to screw it up too badly. Probably. I will be honest. No guarantees, but we will try our best. That is what worries me, Counselor Venn said. Jake paused at the door and turned back. Oh, one more thing. The fruit. Can I take one with me? I really want to try cooking with it. I am thinking maybe a glaze for chicken, or possibly a jam situation. Might go really well with cheese. Absolutely not. At least 20 counselors shouted. Worth a shot. Jake shrugged, then his face brightened. Wait, actually, before I go. He walked back to the containment field, reached in, and grabbed one of the Zytheron fruits. The alarm systems, apparently having given up on life, only gave a half-hearted beep. Representative Harrison, put that down. Immediately, Krell commanded, but his voice lacked conviction. He sounded like a man who had already accepted defeat. Jake held up the fruit. I just realized I have not eaten lunch except for that sandwich, and I am starving. You guys do not mind, right? We mind very much, Trix said. Cool, thanks. And then, while the entire Galactic Council watched in various states of horror, resignation, and morbid fascination, Jake Harrison bit into the Zytheron fruit like it was an apple. The sound of crunching echoed through the chamber. Jake chewed thoughtfully, his expression considering. Kind of tart. Needs salt, but not bad. Sort of like a cross between a plum and a pomegranate. Little bit of an aftertaste, kind of peppery. He took another bite. Krell had simply frozen, his brain apparently unable to process what he was witnessing. Counselor Venn had fainted again. Trix had somehow compressed himself even further into his containment suit. The crystalline counselor was vibrating at a frequency that suggested she was on the verge of shattering entirely. Anyway, Jake said, walking toward the exit while eating the galaxy's most deadly fruit like it was a mid-afternoon snack. I am out. Someone send me that parking form. Oh, and if you guys want to grab lunch sometime, let me know. I know a great taco place. We can talk about trade agreements or whatever. Later. The doors hissed shut behind him. For a long moment, nobody in the Galactic Council chamber moved. They sat in collective silence, processing what had just happened. Processing the fact that they had just granted membership to a species that juggled death fruit and then ate it while asking about parking validation. Finally, Krell spoke, his voice distant and hollow. What have we done? We have invited chaos into our carefully ordered galaxy, Counselor Venn said, having regained consciousness for the second time that day. We have allied ourselves with a species that drinks poison for fun, Trix. Added, they eat controlled rot, the crystalline counselor whispered. Controlled rot. Krell looked around at his fellow counselors, at the empty containment field where 3 pieces of deadly fruit had been, at the door through which Jake Harrison had just exited while casually consuming something that should have killed him 3 times over. Someone, Krell said slowly, needs to update the membership manual. Add a new section. Something about species that evolved on death worlds and have no concept of appropriate fear responses. What should we call the section? Venn asked. Krell thought for a moment, his eyes still twitching. Humanity. And somewhere in the diplomatic quarter, completely unaware of the existential crisis he had just caused, Jake Harrison arrived at Zenthar's Noodle Haven, still eating his fruit, and asked if they had any hot sauce. The galaxy would never be quite the same.